Hello and welcome to the show. So, Attacks Johnson, a name that you might know as a very, very fast Forza racer, was hosting a mini All-Stars event on Horizon 3. I was invited along, and we would be taking part at various races on the Kingmaker circuit at Blizzard Mountain. There's a track that essentially loops its way around the expansion pack. We started off with some general S1 class cars. For this, I built up the Lancia Delta that dominated, or has so far dominated, the rally car build series. I built it up to the top of S1 class, and I would, luckily enough, find myself on pole ahead of Mr. Aero HD. He was driving a Celica. P1 TV was in an Opel Manta. Super GT was somewhere further back with an Evo. Dr. Tom had a Dodge Viper, and Johnson was at the back with an M4, but we all suspected he wouldn't last there particularly long. My Delta was running some 800 horsepower to get into the top of S1 class, so it's a pretty crazy Delta still with that Mercedes V8 in it. Sounds fantastic and certainly goes very quickly in a straight line. However, turning it is not the greatest of handling cars. Also, I didn't know the track particularly well at this. I had a couple of practice runs, but yeah, still didn't really know the Kingmaker circuit that well. I immediately found myself under attack from Super GT's Evo 6. Would get past, then run quite wide. I would retake the position again, making the most of the Lancia's strength. There's incredible straight line speed around this circuit, although the brakes perhaps not the strongest. I didn't realise how tight that corner was. Plowing. We're doing a little bit of grass cutting as we go. The Evo 6 would find a way past. Also, maybe a little bit too much braking for the next corner. Johnson was already up into third. Terrifying sight of the BMW already right behind me. Knew it was going to be a little bit difficult to fend off him. I had the acceleration, but I did not have the corner speed. The BMW getting up alongside would pass, although I can try and fire it along with the straight line speed of the Lancia, and then having to back out though when I realised it wasn't really going to fit through there. Super GT goes for a little bit of an explore out in the scenery, and Johnson will be up into first. I got a couple of millimetres away from missing a checkpoint. There is a little bit of trading paint between two legendary rally cars trying to go around the outside. It doesn't really quite work at that particular corner. Now we're starting to get into the twisty parts. Got no real answer for the BMW as he would fly away at the front. However, me and the Evo would have a really rather good race. The Evo had a little bit better handling and did actually have better top speed than my Delta. However, the Lancia had an awful lot of punch out of the corners, and as the Evo slides its way through this very tricky, this is the Devil's Corners hill climb route, or the kind of the reverse of that route, is a nasty section, especially when you've got a car like mine that is struggling to turn, although thankfully for me, the Evo was having issues of his own behind as we run up towards the final stretch. Johnson far off in the distance with his BMW. Onto the tarmacy stuff we go, the brief bit of tarmacy stuff through here. I'm not quite got the grip in the Lancia. We run a bit wide. The Evo is coming quick and has got that straight line speed, that top end speed over the Delta. I've only got 5-speed gearbox in this car. I can't quite maintain the speed. Takes a slightly wonky line. I hate that corner. I'm really not good at that particular corner, and not enough speed as we head back onto the dirt. I was looking like I was going to be stuck in third. However, the Evo hits the ice. It is a horrible patch. I hit the ice as well, but not as badly as the Evo. It's a horrible section of ice right before the finish line there. I would claim a second place in our opening race. A bit unlucky for that Evo. Yeah, well, once you've kind of got stuck on it there, you're just a passenger. There is so little that you can do at that stage. The Viper would come home in fourth ahead of the Opel Manta, with Aero down at the bottom, not even managing to get to finish. The Celica didn't fare particularly well on this opening race. So it was on to the second run. Again, just doing a one-lap race around the Kingmaker. Super GT decided to put Johnson in the wall. Kind of do us all a favour, give us a little bit of a chance to get away. P1 TV would lead from the off, and I, as you can see, had gone a little bit crazy. I've gone for the Ford Woody. However, This is the vehicle that did win the previous rally car build series. It was very, very quick at the Reservoir Trail, although I didn't think it would be very good at the mountain. The Reservoir Trail, a very, very fast course, whereas Blizzard Mountain, a lot twistier, especially this particular route with the very, very tight corner sections to end. I thought there was a little bit of fun, really. I wanted to take 1,000 horsepower. I'm pretty sure it was a Viper-engined Ford Woody up the Blizzard Mountain course, and I found myself in second relatively early on, and as the focus goes for a little bit of a bounce across the scenery, the Woody would take the lead. Amazingly, it would find itself up in first, this time managing to get stopped for the horrible, horrible left-hander. Plenty of oversteer in this vehicle, and it led for quite a while. Of course, it wouldn't be long, despite having been put in the wall early on, before Johnson would catch up to the back of the Ford, this time driving a Mercedes. However, it was probably tougher to pass the Woody than people were expecting. This thing was actually pretty damn quick out here. I was not expecting it to be able to carry the sort of speed that it could around this course. It really wasn't that bad. It's crazy, but it wasn't that bad to drive as we come through what I would now know as McRae. Small section from the rally car builds. This circuit does loop around. Not quite got the control or got a very good line through there in the Woody. However, its brutal straight line speed was just about fending off the Mercedes for a little bit. Not for too long, as if we come to a hairpin and the AMG would fire itself up the inside, and there wasn't a massive amount that I could do to really fight it through the corners. However, I had built up a relatively sizable lead over the rest of the field in this one, and was happy to just kind of follow the Mercedes and see how close I could keep with it as we ran down the incredibly twisty sections. And yeah, the Woody did me pretty proud, actually, I have to say. When we came to the higher speed stuff, the car has got the acceleration. If this was a nice long straight bit of tarmac, I think we would be fine. However, these high speed corners are quite terrifying in this, and at the end of the day, we really don't quite have the composure, and I don't have the skill to keep up with that Mercedes. But to have been this close for this long was, I think, a pretty good showing from an absolutely crazy car. Yeah, I knew it could be a half-decent vehicle, this one. You know, it showed itself at the Reservoir Trail to be very, very fast, but this is a completely, utterly different sort of a challenge around here. And yeah, it held on remarkably well across the ice and no problems for the Ford. Do slightly lose sight of that Mercedes towards the end of this run, but still another second place for me. I was relatively pleased with, and then there's a crashed Mercedes on the finish line. Super GT with the Nissan GTR would come home in third place. Aero did a little bit better in this one, up into fourth. The Focus in the end would drop down to fifth place ahead of Dr. Tom with another one of the GTRs. Now, for our next race, we all decided to be a bit silly. Yes, we would take the Reliant Supervan, completely stock with the exception of snow tyres. So not very much power. Some grip, so they can actually get going a little bit. Yeah, the real trick with these, of course, is try not to roll them. I found myself down towards the back of the field. You can see the difference running manual with clutch. These are all identical cars. Running manual with clutch can make when it comes to just simply setting off. As Super GT makes it up into second, I do make it up into fourth before getting past everyone that manages to fly themselves into the wall. You see, I do have a slightly sneaky advantage in this kind of racing in that I am used to racing dumb cars. I am used to racing these silly vehicles. Johnson didn't want to get too far ahead and have a boring race, so slowed down. Probably forgot just how long it takes to get back up to speed in a Reliant, which is why we've all now shot past and he fell back down into fourth place. Yeah, we have raced the Reliance beforehand, so I do kind of know what it's like to drive these cars. You've really got to drive them incredibly smoothly, because as soon as they start tipping up onto their side, you lose a lot of speed, and it's very, very difficult to recover, and you just lose 5-10 seconds so easily. And I'm pulling away from the rest of the field a little bit. It wouldn't be long before, of course, Johnson would find a way to catch up, and was trying to find a way past. It might be perhaps the slowest overtake in the history. It's well, yeah, not much is happening as I get stuck a little bit on the inside there. We're both trying to do all that we can to make something happen. But yeah, it tends not to. Nothing goes very quickly when especially when you're going up a hill. In the Reliance, I tried to get sneaky and go to the inside of the corner. Might have changed down a gear. Wasn't really sure what gear I wanted to be in. I don't think second was a particularly good idea. At the end of the day, I had to sort of try and give something a go at finding a way back past. And the race remained fairly steady. Johnson got to the lead, and then every so often would make a mistake, and I'd catch up, or I'd have a good sector. Super GT would kind of catch up and then drop back a little bit, depending on who was having a good sector or not. I was trying my very best to stop that, and I know it's weird. I know it's weird to say this, but I tried my very best to make sure I didn't roll the Reliant. And Johnson, out at the front, carried too much speed into McRae's and got himself up onto the side, and that 3-second gap would evaporate, and that would put me up into the lead. Just taking that, it's a little bit too much sort of steering lock almost through a corner that will upset the Reliance. It'll get it up onto its side and it'll cause all sorts of trouble. It is often better to be a little bit slower through a corner and make sure that you don't get up onto its side, although, yeah, even I, who has some experience racing these, was still finding places to roll over. In fact, Johnson fell back to third and had quite a lot of rolls. I think he ended up rolling it 4 times, or got it stuck on its side about 4 times in the latter half of this race, which would allow me to escape at the front a little bit, although as we came into the closing stage, I did have quite a nice gap back to a Super GT and to Aero, who had worked his way up into a third place. However, a couple of duff corners caused trouble for me. I thought I'd sort of got the hang of the Reliance, but these hairpins kind of proved slightly otherwise. I didn't actually roll the vehicle fully over. I just got it sort of tipped up onto its side, stuck on the floor, lost all of momentum, and then crashed it back down again, which very quickly eradicated an almost 8-second lead. Mistakes are so easy to make. They were surprisingly quicker around this course than we expected. We thought it was going to be like 20 minutes of fighting with Reliance. However, it was, yeah, a little bit quicker. However, as we came towards the end of the race, it was going to be another grandstand finish between me and Super GT. I managed to press the wrong button, changed down a gear. Not a good idea. The black Reliance in the rear view getting ever closer. Neither of us knew how much speed we could get away with around this final tarmac corner. At the end of the day, I just about kept it together. Super GT tried a little bit more speed, or sort of a slightly wider line, perhaps turned it a bit tighter than I did, and that got his vehicle up on its side, and it would tumble over in its attempts to get past me. I got it up on its side, I scraped along the floor, but I didn't manage to keep it from rolling and keep it out of the houses. And then I had the simple job, and I say simple job, you could get screwed over by the ice. Thankfully, you're not going quite as quick with one of these. Had no problems with the ice. Somewhere up ahead, there is a finish line. We went through many weathers and many times of day in the course of this race. We did get around the Kingmaker course, though, in less than 10 minutes, as I would take the victory, of course, in the rather silly vehicles. It was, yeah, looking like a grandstand finish, although for a roll, the Super GT would have to settle for second place. Aero coming home in a rather close fought for third. Any time now, there is going to be a close trade somewhere. Where are they? I think I hear a buzz. Maybe not in this one. There we go. Across the line for third, with Johnson down in fourth. We would then have a go at a team race. It would be me, P1 TV, and Aero against Johnson, Super GT, and Dr. Tom. We were going for another little bit of a silly race, with us taking BAC monos. Standard BAC monos, though, fitted with snow tyres. I would start in second place, Johnson leading the way. I may have got a little bit ambitious into the first corner. I thought I could take a slightly tighter line, and I did slightly muscle my way up into the lead. Karma immediately bit me in the ass, and I went for a spin, managing to crash into my teammate and having all of the red cars at the front of the field. yeah, wasn't the greatest start. Aero then slowed down and deciding that I probably shouldn't be in last place because everybody would think that I was a useless driver, so that someone between me and the back of the field. Yeah, wasn't my greatest of starts. Got massively unhappy on the landing. Did the BAC mod? I might have had the steering perfectly straight or something upset the car, and yeah, we found ourselves well down the order. But thankfully, you know, if you spin out on a race like this, there is some time to try and recover. And the BAC mono was actually quite good out here in the snow. There was a little bit of friendly fire as well on red team. Super GT may have put Johnson in some rocks. I think intentionally as well. Put Johnson in some rocks, which did help us out a little bit, moving me up into moving up into 4th place. P1 TV, I think, got his car caught. It was quite easy to do here. Get your car caught on bits of fence or bits of trees. Really slowed the monos down if you hit them. So as you see, good timing right there from a Super GT. Yeah, you clip that fence, it will tip your car sideways or just kill all of your momentum. It's a simple mistake to make. The monos, not exactly the greatest car for cutting through the scenery, although Super GT would fight back carrying a very wide line. I was a lot slower on the way into the corner, however I am much faster out of that turn as the two black cars going almost side by side into the hairpin, and Super GT will get a bit too much oversteer and end up spinning the car around. Things were looking better now for blue team. While Dr. Tom was still leading the way in the red, or with the red team, Super GT and Johnson were now down at the back of the field. So I had just to find a way past one more vehicle as we run our way up towards a horribly icy corner. Now, I expected the red car to dive to the inside. He didn't actually, ended up kind of going through the ice patch. I was ready to go around the outside. It didn't really work out massively well for me, although huge oversteer moments from the car ahead would allow me to find a way past and put me up into the lead. However, it wouldn't all be plain sailing. I might have slowed down a little bit more than some were doing through that section as Tom fires his vehicle up the inside, although can't quite hold on to the position. A cutback from me as he ends up slithering his way across the ice would put my mono back into the lead. Aero was actually catching us at this stage as well as we were busy fighting one another. Aero was catching quite quickly. Again, I wasn't perhaps quite making the most of the mono out here. I wasn't quite pushing the car as much as you might be able to get away with. Having never driven this car out in these sort of conditions, I think I was just being a little bit too cautious. And admittedly, it is easier when you are the chasing car. You can see what the leader is doing, you can see what the car ahead is doing, and kind of go off that. You know, you can try and brake just that smidge later or carry that smidge more speed. And yeah, I was coming under increasing pressure from Aero and Tom. In the end, I think Aero ended up giving Tom a little bit of a bite. Tom had made a mistake as well and dropped down the order. So as we once again came hurtling down towards this tarmac section, it was my turn to run over the track scenery and lose a whole bunch of momentum, which in a single make race is never a good idea. Aero had to sniff up the inside, but changes his mind when he realises that there's not going to be a massive gap there for too long. I then take a little bit of a trip across some snow, a little bit unnecessarily in all of that. The bigger issue, though, like my hateful corner. I carry a lot of speed on the way in, then realise it's a bit too much. Couldn't quite make it stick. Aero gets a much better line through that corner. The red car firing up the inside. I'm again content to try and go for a cutback. Can't quite make it work across the inside. I hit a tree or hit sort of the debris around. Get slowed down. Aero, though, has to take avoiding action around the house, and that would once more on that fateful, almost final corner, I would find myself able to move up to the lead and would take the victory. And despite the pair of us managing to almost cock everything up for blue team, Aero would get second, a couple of milliseconds ahead of Super GT. Johnson recovered up into fourth, with Tom in fifth. We would finish off with another team race, another selection of random, slightly crazy S1 class cars. Again, same teams. We kind of expected it to shuffle the teams up, but it did not. Super GT had gone for the bonkers Toyota FJ. I'd gone for the Rammer. It's kind of a bit difficult to go crazier when you've already used the Ford Woody. There's kind of not much that you can do to go any crazier than it. So I used another one of the old rally car build vehicles, the Ram Runner. But if anything, it's probably a little bit more sensible as more sensible as a Ram Runner can get than the Ford Woody. The Toyota, as you might imagine, was ludicrously fast in a straight line and a horrendous handful through the corners. You already saw it bouncing around on two wheels at this early stage, but the Ram Runner's not light on power with 1,000 again. However, Toyota, being a considerably lighter vehicle and probably having a maxed out V12 in it, was very, very fast in a straight line. I could close, and it was a weird battle in a Ram Runner being able to close through the corners. It's a very weird thing to be saying, however. I would close massively through the corners and then get absolutely annihilated on the straight. Both of us take a little bit of exploring. Doesn't really slow a Ram Runner down where you hit some trees. The trees do not really do much to stop a Ram Runner. I would get my vehicle to the inside and pass the Toyota. Toyota immediately trying to fight back, but not quite having the grip to get away with that move and ending up in the trees and dropping a fair way down the order. Problem was, once again, I had Johnson right behind me. This time, he was running in one of the new Acura NSX. And yeah, it wouldn't be long before he would be trying to find a way past the Ram Runner, especially when I'm going a little bit exploring. Although an NSX having a bit of a bumping duel with a Ram Run is probably not a particularly good thing as he tried to get up the inside. Couldn't quite make the move stick at that particular moment. And I also love how at certain times, because the NSX is so low compared to my Ram Runner, you just couldn't see it in the rearview mirror. Quite a few times when it was close enough, you just completely and utterly lost it from vision. As you can imagine, it wasn't particularly long before Johnson found a way past and did rather bugger off into the distance. A couple of mistakes from me certainly didn't help. P1 TV was actually doing pretty damn well in this one. Driving the V60 Estate was not that far at all behind my Ram Runner as we crossed onto the second lap and me not really be able to getting stopped. No, the first quarter wasn't going massively well for me. Johnson had slowed down, decided he fancied having a little bit more of a race rather than cruising around on his own, at which point the rest of my team decided that I should try and slow down the NSX because he was far too quick. So I was then given chief duty of, well, making the most of the Ram Runner's strength, i.e. its strength and size. Also the odd little bit of bumping from the, the NSX. I think there was some payback was needed. It goes against how I would normally drive. However, Aero had dictated that I should try and slow down the NSX to give everybody else a chance of doing well. I was still going relatively quick, and to be fair, this Ram Runner wasn't too bad of a vehicle around this course once I'd got the hang of it. The NSX pestering now. It's the bumper found its way past on the inside, to which I decided that we're going to take it to the crash barrier. We'll put it against the crash barrier, we'll take off all the paint on the NSX. It did briefly find itself in front, and then we shall get past, and then the NSX thinking better of fighting that battle. He knows it's going to get squashed against the wall, and I do have more straight line speed than the Acura. I can't carry the quarter speed that the Acura can, so I kind of have to win it with muscle. I think he backed out of it in the end, knowing that I could end up pushing him clear of a checkpoint. I wasn't trying to make him miss a checkpoint. I was making myself miss a checkpoint when I forgot what way the track was going. I was busy surprised to see the Volvo up with us. The NSX then decided to try and slow me down as well while we were out in the snow, and the Volvo found its way into the lead, which is always good to see a Volvo out of the lead, although immediately gets himself into trouble running wide. I tried to block the NSX, although a little bit too late, just too much grip from that car. He's then busy fighting with a Volvo that he puts the NSX in trouble. I go to squish the car between the two blue team vehicles, though I end up managing to fire, if anything, Johnson into the lead a little bit more than I had intended. I mean, it had worked as a bit of a slowing down tactic, although now released from the Volvo and a little bit out of range of my Ram Runner, I knew I had to try and do something. Unfortunately, I might have got a little bit brave as I went to outdrag the Volvo. The gap wasn't quite as big as I thought it was, and the Ram Runner's down, very, very much down. Unfortunately, it's very, very stuck. There's not a good way of getting the Ram unstuck from that roll. It was going to happen at some point. It didn't happen with the Reliance, but something was always going to end up upside down, and in the end, yeah, it was the Ram Runner. That would see me to the back of the field. With half a lap to go, there wasn't a huge amount that I could do, and then I might have pushed my luck a little bit too much through the final corner. Somehow I managed to hit one of those checkpoints that I felt for sure I would not. yeah, not such a good final race for me there. So it serves me right, really, for trying to slow down Johnson, I think. Johnson would take the victory with the NSX. P1 TV did a great job with that V60 to get second ahead of Super GT's crazy Toyota, Tom's Lamborghini, and then me and Aero down at the bottom. Yeah, didn't have the best of races. However, this whole event was an awful lot of fun. It's actually great fun racing and messing around with some of the sillier cars. I don't quite know where my driver is going, reversing with the with the Ram Runner there. Now, there is going to be all sorts of different videos on this event on everyone's channel. I think there's a fair few kind of the live recordings going on. So if you want to watch them, I'll link to all the guys who took part in this. I'll link all of their channels in the description. I believe hopefully, if everything has gone to plan, we're all going to have synced their uploads at roughly a similar time. So you can go and check out their videos of this event as well. However, that's going to be it from me. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.